What's up, it's Cinema Shogun here, and early on in this East Palestine, Ohio train derailment story, a lot of people were questioning why did they decide to burn these chemicals right in the middle of this town. It was something that I was questioning because in my mind, it seems like kind of a bad decision, right? I mean, when you tap into your common senses, it seems like not necessarily the common sense option. But I'm not a professional when it comes to this stuff. I'm not an expert. We rely on the experts to tell us what they think should happen. So over the first week or so after this derailment, and while we all, including myself, were criticizing the response to this derailment, we were criticizing how they chose to burn these chemicals. We were basically all gaslit. We were basically all told that we don't know what we're talking about, that we should leave this to the professionals because they know what's best, and that they had to do things this way. They had to do this controlled burn, because if not, it would have been even more dangerous for this community. That's what we were told. As you know, like I said, I'm no expert when it comes to this stuff. So when they're telling us this, it's like, even though inside, I don't feel like this is right. And my common sense is tingling like a spidey sense. And something's telling me like, I don't know about that. But at the end of the day, when you have these people who you're supposed to trust, who are the professionals and experts when it comes to this, telling you that you're wrong, and this is how they have to conduct business, it's hard for you to push back because you don't really know any better. And a lot of the people of East Palestine didn't know any better. Your common sense told you, no, this is wrong. You look at the situation and it just seems off. But then you're being gaslit by the officials who are telling you, this is what we had to do. This is what we had to do. We had to burn all these chemicals right here in the middle of this town and taint the soil, taint the air, and taint the water, taint the crops, taint the people of this town. This is what we had to do. Well, independent scientists and researchers started coming out to the area, and quickly we found out, and we went over this on my channel not too long ago, we found out that this wasn't necessarily what you would call a controlled burn. Don't get me wrong. They started the burn, but they didn't necessarily control it, if you will. But now matters are getting even worse. Or better yet, this whole situation is starting to look even worse on them. Because now other professionals and other experts are speaking out. And they're saying that it doesn't look like they necessarily needed to burn anything. That there was a huge possibility that the tanker that they did the controlled burn on with all of these chemicals, that some of these cars that derailed, that they were actually built to withstand a train derailment. And that the companies that actually designed these tankers and these cars, these train cars, they were never contacted about what should happen. The owners of the materials in these train cars were never contacted about how they should go about this situation. And some experts are saying that they never had to burn this stuff in the first place. Because you have to understand, from my understanding at least, some of these cars that were on this train, they weren't even punctured. Like they weren't even necessarily leaking out chemicals and things of that nature. They punctured the train car themselves and then did what they called a controlled burn that we later learned was not really in control to burn. But instead of you all listening to this from my mouth, let's go ahead and hear what they had to say at the Senate hearing earlier today. I think this puts the icing on the cake. This is the cherry on top. And this is the information that I've been looking for. Because I have these feelings inside, you all have these feelings inside, and it's nice seeing it confirmed for us right on live television. I want you all to watch this clip. Watch it in its entirety and really listen to what's going on here. And then I'll be right back with my thoughts.
Mr. Shaw, when the vent and burn process was being made, who made those decisions, and what was other considerations other than just burning it and letting the material burn off?
Thank you for that question. The only consideration, Senator, was the safety and health of the community. And that decision was made by unified command under the direction of the incident commander.
Who's that?
The incident commander was Fire Chief Drabeck. Norfolk Southern was a part of unified command.
So who owns the car? Who actually owned the rail car or the material in it?
The rail car in question are tank cars, of which no railroad owns.
Okay, were they considered in this decision making? Are they responsible for the content of it and the car itself, for the maintenance and the material in it? Isn't that correct?
Senator, it's a privately owned rail car, and so the maintenance requirements for that rail car are between the rail car lessor and the customer, and those are private contracts. I'm not privy to.
But they're responsible for the content and the car, correct? Making sure it's operating properly?
Yes, sir.
Okay, were they considered in this decision making? Considering it was their car, their design, their responsibility, were they part of that decision making on being able to vent it and burn it?
Senator, the customer provided input.
Were they in the room when the decision was being made?
No.
Because I've received reports that they weren't, so they weren't in the room?
No, sir. Not to my knowledge.
I just seen that kind of hard to believe, that considering that it's their car, it's their responsibility, and they weren't even considered before this decision to vent and burn it in the middle of a town. Doesn't that seem like possibly a mistake there?
Senator, Unified Command was focused solely on the health and safety of the community.
Right. So the people that was in charge of the car should probably have a say in that to make sure we know the best way to dispose of it.
My understanding at the time, from talking to experts, was that we were at risk of a catastrophic rupture that would have resulted in uncontrolled release of hazardous materials.
But it's my understanding, and I haven't been able to clarify this, that the report that I received was the fact that the car was actually working properly at the time. But the car's owners, the ones that were responsible for it, wasn't consulted before it was burned off. Now, I haven't been able to verify that, but I'm asking these questions because that's the information that I received. And if that's the case, I think that's an area for improvement. Would you consider that?
Senator, I can't comment on the accuracy of that report. I'm not aware of that.
But I'm saying if it's accurate, if that was accurate, wouldn't you consider that's a place that we could probably learn from?
I think the primary concern was the health and the safety of the community.
Sir, I get what you're saying, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful to you. But I'm saying is if all parties that's responsible for that car should have been part of that decision making. And because I believe they would probably be saying that they would be concerned too. I think everybody in this room will say that we're concerned about the health and safety of others. That's a gimme. So there's no point in repeating that. I'm just saying, how can we learn from this going forward? If they weren't in the room during the decision making, and yet it was their car, and the report may be accurate that the car was actually working functionally correctly, because those cars are designed for this kind of incident, that the option to vent and burn may not have been the best option if we didn't consider all other options first.
Senator, I understand that. The experts on the ground who were there were very concerned about the pressure in a car.
Right.
We also noted that other cars had been in a pool fire, and their unified command was aware that there was a concern for a catastrophic explosion that would shoot VCM gas and shrapnel.
I hear you. We're just talking in circles here, Chairman. What I'm trying to get to is the fact that if this car was designed by someone else, and if this car was owned by somebody else, and the function of that car was designed by somebody else and was responsible by somebody else, then how do we know that the car wasn't working properly to begin with? And that's a question that needs to be answered, because someone may need to be held responsible that made the decision to burn this off. Because some of this and a lot of this could have been prevented. With that, I'll yield back.
So just let that sink in and think about how that changes everything. We wouldn't even, let me be fair, there's a huge possibility that we wouldn't even have to be here today having this discussion. Me and you might not even know each other existed, because we wouldn't have been brought here to talk about this situation that we're talking about right now in East Palestine. And if you ask me, this is a game changer. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure this will be swept under the rug. I'm sure no one's going to be held accountable. But at the very least, at least now we have this confirmation that in reality, this burn probably didn't have to happen at all. Now the question is, ladies and gentlemen, and this is the question that I have to ask you. You now have this information. How does this information make you feel personally? And you can feel free to be as open as you want to be down in my comment section. You can disagree with me. You can agree with me. I don't care. I'm interested in having open discourse. So you tell me what this information looks like to you. If it's true, and they didn't have to burn these materials in the middle of this town at all, that they could have just collected those train cars and went about their day, then how does that look to you? Do you think this is negligence, just a big mistake because we got a bunch of dummies out there making bad decisions and they chose to do this because they didn't know any better and it was the wrong decision and they didn't know that at the time? Do you think this was just a missed call? Do you think that this was just a mistake, a missed call by these companies? Or do you think there's something more to it? Because this whole situation's been weird. All right? There's a lot of weird stuff surrounding this situation. From the Netflix movie to the mysterious plane crash to the ID program. I am sorry, but this is a weird situation with too many weird coincidences for me personally. So hearing this information, that possibly it looks as if, hey, y'all didn't have to burn none of this stuff at all. Y'all could have collected the train car and went about your day. Does that make you feel now that there's more to this story? Do you feel like this is a big mishap, or was this something kind of done on purpose? Do you think this was kind of done on purpose? Do you think that this was all part of a plan? Do you think that they intentionally wanted to go this route? That's the question that I have for people. And I'm not here to say that there's any right or wrong answer, because I honestly can't look you in your eyes or look the camera and say for a 100% fact that it's either one. I can tell you that I'm leaning towards this. I don't know. I'm leaning towards this. The more and more we find out that this doesn't look as accidental as they say, but anything is possible. Accidents happen all the time. So there's no right or wrong answer. I can't tell you for 100% fact that this was one big mishap or that this is one big conspiracy. All I can do is present you with the details present you with news stories and information that's surrounding this situation. But I can't tell you for 100% fact what actually happened. It's up to you to figure out what you believe happened. Because we're never going to be given the truth from our government. You can go ahead and throw that out the window. I'm sure there will be some people within our government that will seem to care and will seem to seek answers, and some probably will be genuinely trying to get answers. But we're never going to know everything about this situation. So right now, I can say that this, like I said, I think this is a bombshell. I know that it's going to get buried. It's going to get buried deep, 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 deep underneath some toxic radioactive soil. But to me, this is a bombshell. Because if they didn't have to do this, then that makes this so much worse. It makes it so much worse. And knowing that before making this drastic decision that destroyed the lives of people in this town, that destroyed the wildlife, that destroyed this town basically completely. Even though people are still there living, trying to act like everything's normal, it's not. It's not. So I find it extremely frustrating that before making this crazy decision, that they didn't contact everyone possible. Everyone possible, including the people who designed these train cars and designed them so situations like this would never happen. And what does that remind you of? Remember during 9/11, we heard that the Twin Towers were designed to withstand a plane crash. The Twin Towers were designed to withstand a situation like this. And that's the same thing we're hearing now. That these train cars were designed to be able to survive a situation like this. You know what I mean? But hey, whatever. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell. And I'll talk to you all in the next video.